Hey y'all, welcome to the second installment of my Gender in Society final project. Um, Today we are going to be discussing what a world liberated from gender oppression would look and feel like. Um, so, excuse me if you see me looking down. I do have my tablet with a whole bunch of notes because this is quite the loaded concept. But I think this will be a very, um, useful thought experiment and a little fun as well. So let's get into it. I want to preface this conversation um, with a conversation about identity and intersectionality. So, gender is a very large part of our outward identity, especially when we take into consideration the ways that we express our gender through clothing, through actions, accessories, whether we wear makeup, and just the way that we engage with others. But we also need to take into account that it is intertwined with other aspects of our identity. My identity as a black, cisgendered female, heterosexual as well. That did not flow off the tip of the tongue, but that's all right. Um, I have to take that into consideration when doing a thought experiment like this. So, a world liberated from gender oppression, I think would be absolutely amazing. But at the same time, just looking from the perspective of my own identity and people with similar identities to me is only a partial sigh of relief because being a woman is only part of who I am and is only part of the outward expression of my identity. So, resolving gender oppression is not going to completely resolve racial oppression that I experience in my day to day life. So, while I think that's amazing and that there is so much potential for a world liberated from gender oppression, I do have to keep those other aspects of my identity in mind. Um, and also the fact that gender identity does not take into account other parts of our identity that work together to privilege some and underprivilege others. Like, and I'm gonna give a list here. We've already talked about race, but ethnicity and nationality, physical and cognitive ability, and then there are so many other aspects of identity that I do not have the time to get into, but are also just as important. So let's get into some of the institutions or concepts that would be positively affected by the elimination of or liberation from gender oppression. So, the first concept I want to talk about is the gender wage gap. Um, Essentially, it's cisgender men making more money than cisgendered women within even the same industries. So, if you had a female manager and a male manager that work in the same industry, do the exact same work, that cisgendered um, male manager would make more money than the cisgendered women female manager, based on nothing more than the difference in gender. And it's not even just for the gender binary, or at least I suspect, because unfortunately, there's not currently enough research done along the gender wage gap that concerns those who exist outside of the gender binary or who are of trans identity. But my hypothesis, based on what we see today, is that those who exist outside the gender binary or who are of trans identity they may experience the same oppression as cisgendered women, if not even a little bit worse, because of society's strict adherence to this rigid gender binary as normative. So, yeah, I think that elimination of the gender binary would be great. No, I believe that the elimination of the gender wage gap has so much potential for societal improvement. Um, One thing is that it is a contributing factor to the unequal representation of women, particularly single mothers, trans people, non binary people, and gender non conforming individuals in poverty today. So, elimination of the gender wage gap would also help us eliminate or shrink this gender differential in poverty's impact. Um, but the reason that I say that it may only shrink it instead of completely eliminating it is because it is a contributing factor, not necessarily a causal factor. Also, the elimination of the gender wage gap could contribute to greater economic and social mobility and even out the playing field for people of all genders as far as, lifting themselves out of poverty or just reaching that next economic bracket, socioeconomic bracket, so that way they can live a little more comfortably and not have to worry so much about financial issues. Now, that may not be the case for everybody because, like I said, gender is a contributing factor, but it is not a causal factor as to why we see that economic hierarchy and power struggle. But I believe it would work a lot towards evening that out, and even working towards equity, um, as far as, you know, financial struggles. Something else that we should consider in a world liberated from gender oppression is recognition of the sex and gender spectrums. So, human existence is not naturally binary. The binary is a social construct. In reality, we are very varied creatures. So, as far as the sex spectrum, you've got male, you got female, and in between, you've got like intersex. And I don't know if there are any other variations along the middle besides intersex. I don't know the names of them, but that does not invalidate their existence just because I don't know. I'm not an expert. There's plenty of research that I need to do as far as the sex spectrum. But the gender spectrum as well. You've got women, you've got men, you've got non-binary in the middle, but you've also got gender fluid, you've got bi-gender, you've got so many variations of human existence that if I tried to name all of them, this video would be way too long. So the binary is not an absolute structure. We do not live in a world that is entirely black or white. We know that there's gray in the middle, various shades of gray, and that applies to gender and sex. So recognition of this strict binary not being an absolute um, representation of our reality would resolve so many problems. One of those problems would be homophobia and transphobia. But even with the resolution of homophobia and transphobia, We have resolutions of problems such as the bathroom and changing room controversy that we have. So, if you don't identify with the sex or gender that you were assigned at birth, what bathroom do you use? Well, I would argue that you should use the restroom that you identify the most with. But even then, our bathrooms are situated in a binary. We've got women's restrooms and we've got men's restrooms. Yes, we do also have our family restrooms, but you'll see that not many buildings or institutions actually support family restrooms. So, where there are no family restrooms, people have to struggle with what they most identify with and where they think they would be the safest. Like, are they going to get kicked out of the bathroom? Are they going to get harmed in that bathroom? These are things that cisgendered individuals take for granted, that we don't have to worry all that much about if we go into the restroom that we identified with, that we're going to be harmed for our gender identity. So those are definitely some things that we should take into consideration. And with the resolution of homophobia and transphobia, it would contribute to resolving that conflict. But it's not even just that conflict. It would also resolve discrimination in military service, child adoption, because in some states or localities, it is illegal for same sex couples or trans individuals to adopt children, which is absolutely ridiculous, to deprive a child of a family just because of a disagreement as far as gender identity and sex identity and sexual orientation. Another problem that could be resolved is healthcare. People who do not live exist within the gender binary, who exist outside of it, they struggle to get gender affirming healthcare, especially in more conservative localities who don't believe or don't support it. So they are denied certain surgeries they might want to get because they're seen as elective surgeries, which in my opinion, it's not an elective to have your outside match who you feel like you are on the inside. But not even just gender affirming healthcare. I'm talking about like women's healthcare. Women who decide that they don't want children or don't want any more children are commonly told by doctors, oh, you can't get your tubes tied right now, because what if your husband in the future wants more kids? Or what if you decide that you want more kids, even though you've told them, hey, I'm done having kids, I don't want any more children? They still tell you, like, you should wait, or we're not gonna do that right now, taking your choices away. So, healthcare can take away your option to be childless if you so choose. So, resolving that and recognizing the varied ways that we exist as human beings as far as sex and gender would resolve some of those things and also take it out of people's minds, usually cisgendered males' minds, that they have some power and control over other people's bodies. Quite frankly, this thought experiment comes with so many benefits, too many benefits to name in just this one video. If I were to try to, I wouldn't be able to succeed because I feel like gender is so intertwined and it's more than just a feeling. We know that gender is very intertwined in just about everything in society, in our world, because that's the way that we have constructed our societies. But I do think that if gender oppression was no longer a problem, we'd be able to focus that attention on other problems that we see in the world and in society that gender has intertwined itself in, such as advocacy for racial issues or immigration or environmental issues. Gender plays a very important role in some of these. But if we were to eliminate the gender factor, I feel like it would make it a lot easier to work to resolve those matters. But even then, they're still not going to be easy in themselves to resolve, because they are still intertwined with one another, which is why it is so hard to eliminate these issues. The example that I just gave, the racial, immigration, environmental issues, those are intertwined with each other, even if they weren't to be intertwined with gender and sex. So let's take a deep breath, because that was a lot. Only gave you 3 examples, and they were a lot to unpack, and they still need to be further unpacked. So there's a lot more that the elimination of gender oppression could do for us as far as resolving some of the struggles that we experience, or maybe we don't experience, but other people experience in the world. So I would love to have a conversation about this. So I don't know if anybody else is watching these other than my instructor. If not, that's totally okay. But if you're out there, I would love it if you would comment down below what a world free of gender oppression would look and feel like to you. So please, leave a comment, and please be respectful, even when expressing conflicting opinions and views, because this is the only way that we're able to engage in productive debates. So, as always, thank you so much for watching and for listening to me at times ramble on. I promise there was structure to this video. But thank you anyway for watching and sticking with me this long. I'll see you in the 3rd installment. Bye.